if you open your blab.
All right. So welcome, everyone. This is Relationships and ROI. We do this every week, and we're here to help you strengthen, build, and nurture your relationships with your ideal audience so you can have a positive ROI in your business. I'm one of your hosts, Jessika, where I'm the founder and president of Now Marketing Group and Relationship Marketing System. We're marketing agencies that help clients build and repeat referral business with their ideal audience. I like to say that relationships are always more powerful than marketing. So diving into all things relationships and business is one of my passions. And the other two lovely co-hosts are here as well. We have Ravi, Shulke, which is a social media and online customer service expert. He helps businesses online increase their customer loyalty by showing them how to deliver 5-star customer service. He's also the founder of the Secrets of 5-Star Service, an online membership site that shows business owners how they can increase their customer loyalty and sales. And last but not least, Mike Gingerich is president of website agency Digital Hill. He's also the co-founder of TabSite and a founder of a nonprofit, I Give Global, where he lives and works by the philosophy of always being uncommon and always adding value. So welcome, guys.
Yes, great to be here.
Absolutely good to be here today.
This week, we are diving into how to set your price and tips for setting your price in business. That's a common question that comes up as we're working with clients, like, is our pricing right? Should we increase our cost? Should we lower our pricing? And especially for new businesses getting started, it's kind of hard for them to determine if they're right there. And it's always hard to go back and fix it if you've already got started. So diving into tips and tricks for setting your price and how to know if you're on target or not. So
that's it.
I'm sure you guys had to go through this process too, right?
Yes.
With your business. It's hard to know. Luckily, there was a university here that we were able to go to and kind of bounce some ideas off of, do some testing it out to make sure that we were on target. But it's a little bit challenging. So how did you guys first get started with it?
Ravi, you want to jump?
Yeah, sure. Mine actually was through research and to see what the industry was actually charging at the time, because social medias, when like years and years ago, there's a few named people that were doing speaking and things like that, but to truly make the services your own, such as management and things like that, especially being from London, like my prices here wouldn't reflect the same as you guys out at the States or wherever you are around the world. So I had to research and think to myself, what are the others charging in my industry as a first ballpark figure? Because if you don't research what others are doing in the industry, you find that you're charging too much or too little, and then you get confused with pricing. And then if you get pricing wrong, then it can lead to losing customers because they're put off and they don't see others. They can also fall for the trap of going for a cheaper option. So I think you need to research what your industry is charging. That doesn't mean you have to follow what they're doing, but I think get a bit of research behind why you're charging that price before you come up with your figure, rather than say I'm worth $1,000 an hour, for example. So have a bit of a background into what people are used to spending when they pay for your type of services.
But that's smart that you said you did research and it wasn't the highest rate but also you don't want to be the lowest rate because there's a reason people are charging that amount. So that's smart.
Yep.
What about you, Mike?
I think Ravi's right on, and I think I would add to that one of the things that you want to make sure you factor in is what are your costs. So you want to know kind of what your bottom line is, and that isn't just including what your time is, but that's your entire operations that factors into that, your marketing, your overhead, some of those pieces to determine what that bottom line is that you need to earn to keep the lights on, so to speak. So that's kind of a key factor that businesses, sometimes small businesses, kind of skip over. I mean, they can jump to what are others doing, but I think you just want to know from a tracking perspective, from a budgeting perspective, what your bottom line costs are, to keep the lights on. So you know what that is. But then, as Ravi said, you got to go a lot further than you want to know kind of what's happening in your industry, and then what is happening in your region, because all those are going to be factors based on that. Who will your ideal client be, and where are they located? And, so those are key factors involved with that, so that you're trying to determine in your ideal market, what will that market bear? What's going to be a competitive rate that's, again, is going to be definitely above some of your minimum baselines that you need, but is going to position you well. And then, once you know what the research says on some of the factors, then I think you want to take a look at what's your angle going to be. And I know for us, in many ways, we've chosen to not be the cheapest, and to be probably on the higher end, but maybe not the highest, trying to be competitive, but trying to supersede a lower cost with a higher value of professionalism, of service that's involved there that warrants that. So making that relationship a priority, so that that's something that someone wants and sees value in.
That's good. Yeah, there's really 3 different types of pricing that I found, and you've touched on several of those. There's 3 different types. There's value added pricing, which you said, you can charge a little bit more for your services because you're basing it on the value of the ROI that you're going to be giving the client and the customer. And if you're doing value added pricing, you want to make sure that you know what your key differentiators are and what you're going to be providing that's different from the other people that are providing the same service. So you know that you can offer a bigger return. So you're basing it you're pricing off the return that you're giving them, not necessarily your hourly rate or your retail pricing. There's definitely a huge market for value-based pricing, and it's actually the biggest kind of increase that I've seen with people doing value-based pricing is that, because you are unique, you're in this niche, how you can charge for that based upon the services that you're going to deliver, right? So value-based pricing, I'm a huge proponent of that. The other one, though, is retail pricing, which there's a formula that I'll paste in here in a minute. And then the other one is hourly pricing. So there is a complete formula to determining your hourly pricing. And this is how I first got started. And this is kind of the easiest way, but then also the hardest way to plan for the future is hourly based pricing, especially if you're a solopreneur getting started. Usually start with hourly pricing, but then don't factor in how those costs are going to increase as you start hiring a team, you're paying for an office, you're purchasing other things. You don't take that in consideration. You were like, why am I doing all this work and not breaking even or barely breaking even? But the hourly pricing is this exact formula right here. So it's the cost of your living, the cost of all of your expenses, like your cell phone bill, the things that you're going to be purchasing, everything, adding that together to know what all your expenses are, even your cost of living. So your healthcare, your taxes that you have to pay in, adding that together, and plus, your salary that you want to make, knowing what that is, subtracting those two. So the cost minus what you want to make. And then you're going to divide it by how many hours you're actually going to be working. Because even though it feels like you're working 24/7, you don't really, you aren't really working 24/7. So how many hours could you make this income? And that's going to be your hourly based pricing. And it's, like I said, that's the one that comes in tricky later on as you're doing it, because you don't know how to factor as much for the future growth as you normally would if you're just starting out with a full team as a solopreneur.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just going to also add, for those businesses that, let's just say, they're worried about trading time for money, how can they kind of manage their time more effectively to get the most out of it? If they're worried about, for example, hourly pricing taking up their whole day with 3 or 4 clients, how would you advise that they manage that process so they can maybe have more time to spend on their business without relying on it taking up their whole day?
So if they could maximize their time, maybe there are some things that you could outsource at a less expensive rate or insource. You have a team member, maybe that's when it starts making sense. Like, hey, I could hire someone for, charging this hour, still be able to duplicate my time. Maybe I'm working on this project for that hourly rate and I'm hiring someone else to work on this for that hourly rate, but I end up making a little bit more because we're charged the same, hourly rate, but maybe that person that you're hiring isn't at that hourly rate. Then you can maximize your time and start earning a little bit that way when it makes sense.
I think another potential way, I mean, it's still kind of hourly, but can you sell a block of hours? And are there things that you can do so that, in a block of hours, can you gain some efficiencies in your use of that time so that you are earning a higher dollar value within that, so it's taking you less time to accomplish than that full block of hours?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Also, it could be based on the task because sometimes charging by time, especially, for example, we're in social, but if you're in the more technical side of things, such as web design, one small code error could take 2 hours when it was scheduled in for 15 minutes. So if you can base your tasks on projects, then at least that way the client can turn around and say, you've delivered what we asked for, rather than why am I paying for 4.5 hours when it should have taken 2. So I think that's another way around using up a lot of your time unnecessarily.
Exactly. That's why I like value-based pricing, because some things may take you a little bit more time to complete it, but the client's like, I'm not paying for you to train and learn this or for the hurdles that you're going into. And that's when you start seeing a spreadsheet of hours and what they were doing for each of those hours. You feel like people are, the client would start analyzing those hours. Why is it taking this long? If it's an hourly rate, why is it taking you 20 hours? Does it really take that long? Versus the value-based pricing, it's just like, we're going to complete this and give you your end result that you're desiring for this amount, which is same as like what you just said per project. It's for a project. So, yeah, I like that. Jed says, why pay me the same rate to do creative knowledge work, attend meetings, and staple copies of handouts? You need to also price in the time that client takes away from you doing their work you could bill for. Exactly. So when you go into pricing by hour, that's those things that can get missed. It's the phone calls you're going to take afterward because you're just saying, here's how long it's going to take me to finish this. Whereas the value-based pricing, you can include that in all the way because there's a lot of little things that go into it afterward.
So basically, we're in collective agreement that that's probably the least preferred method there, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are things that you're going to be selling potentially that we're going to make sense for pricing for a product, for example. And so those kinds of things are what you will have to come up with, a flat rate. It can still be based on the value of perceived of what you're getting, but you're able to duplicate kind of your efforts a little bit because you're maybe spending your time one time or less times, I should say, with creating it, and then you're going to be able to sell it over and over again. So Ravi, for example, both of you guys actually, you both have platforms to where you sell either a training course or a membership. So talk us through how you did the pricing for that.
Yeah, so I think from my standpoint with a product, an online product like that, again, so you're trying to take a look at over the course of time, what are others earning for theirs, and you want to do some research on that, and what value you're offering, what does it take you to compile all this and put this together, and then taking a look at some of the intellectual assets that you're offering there, and kind of what is that worth to you, and then trying to get your system set up so that it can auto deploy. What kind of time do you have invested in that? What kind of equipment you're going to need to deliver it, and then factoring that in, how many of these do I need to sell? Ultimately it has to be affordable. It's going to have to be within the wheelhouse of certain people to be able to pay for that, and then kind of knowing what your break-even point is in terms of a number of products sold and what you see as potential to get there.
That's good. Yeah, I like that you're, pricing in the equipment as well, because those are things you're going to have to replace over time. So you have to take that definitely into consideration of knowing that it's not just a one-off thing that you're going to have to continue to.
Yeah. Is it a membership site, and is there recurring costs monthly on those, yearly on those types of pieces? What type of updates you're going to need to be able to do there?
Exactly. What about you?
Yeah, and I think for my membership site, the services aren't tangible, so you can't literally hold or actually feel what you're purchasing. So in terms of, like, for example, teaching and video resources, they're obviously watchable and downloadable, but again, two videos next to each other don't mean much. So the way I've had to price it is what we've talked about today, is that value-based pricing. So why are you purchasing the membership? What do you get once you're inside? So we're really talking about the experience, because normally when you go and buy an ice cream and you bite into it, that's the experience. It tastes good, the flavor, everything. But with the online world, they don't get that until they go inside the membership site. So we have to tell them, this is what you can expect inside. This is why it would be a good idea to sign up. And then the value comes in the form of this is how the actual community or product or service can actually help. So often at times in the online world, we use social proof like testimonials. We might have case studies in there, anything that can show them how to justify the kind of value they're going to get. Then you'll often find in those situations that pricing isn't going to be too much of a hurdle. And then lastly, with the membership site, I think it's important to be a little bit flexible. So when we talk about pricing, you have a monthly option, but you have an annual option. Now, I know for those that sell products as opposed to membership sites, they like to do this as well. They like to either box it up as an annual price, or they like to say pay in 4 installments. Now, it makes total sense if you think about it, because if you go to the store and you buy £2,000 or $2,000 television, you want the option to break it down because it makes it more manageable. So I think we should also think about those type of customers in the online world and offer that kind of payment support if that's what they're looking for, and also if it suits your type of business as well.
Yeah, and I liked a couple of things that you said, is that you're breaking down the value for them, either by testimonials or case studies, but you're helping for someone that maybe doesn't know, since they can't touch it, see it, buy it, like as far as a tangible product, it's education. You have to get in to know what the value is. So you're breaking it down for what they're going to get out of it and using social proof in order to say, this is why the value is there. So in order to create that social proof, which is genius for all businesses, is saying, here's what our product is going to do to make your life easier, or to make your, save you money, save you time, decrease your headache, whatever it is. But in order to say, this is why it's worth that. I know we go through this all the time with selling social media service. They're like, what, you're charging this much money to post on social media, which those sites are free, right? And you have to break it down like, we're saving you time, or increasing your business awareness, etc. Now, the big thing though is once you set your price, some people, if they don't see the sales right away, it could be tempting to lower your price, or especially if a competitor comes out and they are maybe offering a similar service, not the same, but similar, where it's like, okay, their price is, $20 less than mine.
Yeah.
The temptation to lower your price in order to win over that business is always there. What is your advice on if someone should lower their price or not to meet that? Do you guys have a tip?
Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier at the top of our conversation that everyone's unique and you have a unique set of skills which you want to give out to the world. That's one thing you need to just take on board straight away, because if we take the fitness industry, for example, there are millions of people with six-pack abs, and if you wanted to start a business in that area, you might think, well, if I want to teach fitness, I've got no hope because there's millions of other personal trainers. But at the end of the day, if you're able to put your personality and what makes you unique across, that's what's going to attract your clients. And I think I know it's going to be quite scary to price your services higher than maybe your competitors, but unlike a supermarket, this isn't something they can just save a bit of money on and get away with. Like, we're talking about people's businesses, we're talking about their livelihood, and obviously we want them to succeed as well. So showcasing that individuality or your personality through your product or service or even your business is going to be a key way to stand out. And I think it's one of the reasons why the Kickstarter campaigns also get high funding and backers, because they can actually show that unique individualness in their products as well.
That's good. Unless you can sell the 8-pack abs, make a little difference.
Yes. If you've got the 8-pack abs, then you can definitely charge whatever you like.
You got it. But think of, that's a good example though, the fitness industry. Think of how many different kinds of fitness there are. And it's $1 million, $1 billion, industry, where all these companies are coming out with, Zumba, but Zumba's not enough. I'm going to teach you how to break dance. I'm going to teach you how to, do whatever that's fun, and they're selling the fun, they're selling the experience, like you mentioned, and that's why they're able to do that. Or, I'm going to get you fit in 20 days. No, I'm going to get you fit in 3 days, but you only have to work out 10 minutes a day. They all have that unique difference. They're selling the same kind of thing in their own unique way, and that's why it's been powerful for them and easier to price it the way they are. And some of those are, I'm up sometimes that late at night and see those infomercials. They're targeting me, where they're, a couple $100 sometimes, where they break it down in the installments, like you mentioned, and people are calling. They're buying it because they have that unique difference. So it's a good example.
Well, there's so many variables there, isn't it? I mean, I think that it does vary. You have to take a number of things into consideration, but I like that example in the fitness industry. I think about that on Instagram. You ever seen that on Instagram, and where you see a lot of fitness trainers and they're promoting things? But if you take a look at it from a long spectrum of time, there are, basically newbies who break in and make it there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and there's somebody that you didn't know was there 4 months ago, and maybe they got started, 12 months ago, kind of thing, and they made it. They broke in, and they didn't do it on. Typically, when I see those, they are not doing it on a cheaper price model. Okay, it's doing it on something else, a value add, a uniqueness, a relationship factor. Kind of one of those things you said. So I think it's important to not get caught in a price battle and to just look at cheaper is better, because there will always be somebody that's cheaper, always be somebody that wants to cut it down. And again, the person who wants to go for that is typically going to be someone. Is that who you want as your term client? Is it a disposable client? Okay, is that what you're after? Because and maybe that's one way to look at it, is to say, am I willing to forgo a few immediate lesser sales to have better, longer term, higher quality sales over time, and those ones that last. So I think now, so that's one thing to say. I think there is something to consider in terms of lifetime value of a client as well. And so if someone is willing to, commit contract for a certain length of time, then maybe you do want to offer them some type of value in that for the length that's going to offer. So if and it kind of comes back to a little bit of what Ravi mentioned with monthly or yearly pricing, but even on a bigger basis than that, you want to take a look at the lifetime value. If it's going to help you get in somewhere, and this one has a longevity in front of it, that it could be 1 to 3 years, that maybe that's a significant value. So you're willing to take off 15% on the monthly, whatever that fee is, that type of thing.
That's good. Like,
and
I like what you said with
right here, so that's good too, I guess.
Hey, Jed. No, but I like what you said with the lowering the price, and I love this quote by Seth Godin. It says, lowering your price is a race to the bottom, and chances are you may just win, which you don't want to win that battle, right? And discounting, to me, I don't know if you guys all get the same coupons that we get here in Ohio, but Ruby Tuesdays always has this buy one, get the second one 50% off, right? And ever since they've started sending this coupon, I will never go there. I'm always looking for that coupon. It's never worth the full price to me. I'm on their price, since they've lowered their price down to that and they've deep discounted to get people back. Their price is only to me the buy one, get one half off. And a lot of times that happens with all businesses. When you start really deep discounting your business, your price is never what it was originally. All people are going to remember is that last discount that they received and that they only had to pay that amount. So it's really hard to bounce back from that. So we even wrote a blog like, you should never lower your price, because the same thing. I mean, I shouldn't say never, because in your example, Mike, with the contract, that's a little bit different. You're locking into a guarantee with someone and you're kind of meeting them there with that value added that, hey, we're going to have a long-term relationship working together for a while. It's not going to maybe cost us as much to, the cost of winning back a new person, a new client. It always, you take that cost into consideration. You won't have to take that cost into consideration because they are going to be a long-term client for you. So you can take that into consideration when you're then setting up that price. That makes sense. But the discounting to win new business is a whole other ballgame that I don't recommend. The cell phone companies do this. And how do you feel then if you've been with a company? I know I've been with Verizon for almost 17 years now. And it's like crazy to me when they offer these amazing deals to people that are new time customers, but then the ones that have been there forever, you look at it like, why am I not getting this deal? I should be rewarded for being there for a long time, not the other way around. So if you're going to do anything with pricing, it's reward the clients that have been with you for a long time, not the ones that are brand new, coming on deep discounting just to win the business, because it leaves just a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
That's also a great point, because for mobile companies, even like a 39-cent increase gets you annoyed. Even a 12-cent increase gets you annoyed, because you're used to paying such a low price. That model gets you used to that type of contract. And usually when they increase it by those small figures, I can guarantee without seeing the data that they're going to lose a large chunk of customers straight away. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the States, but here in London, you're tied into 2 years at a time. That's 24-month contracts are the norm out here. So once they locked you in, you're locked in. So if they have a price increase, legally speaking over here, that actually means that is your opportunity to get out of the contract. And I think a lot of people, when they see these changes, tend to leave when they see a small increase. So I think it's definitely a great point. Also, I just wanted to quickly, so we talked about obviously lowering it, but wanted to quickly touch upon then maybe what about increasing your price? When's a good time to go higher instead of lower?
Yes. So I can jump in here. We had to do this for a client because we've been in business for 6 years, right? And I had this client really early on, and I had never increased our bill ever, 5 years, never changed the billing, the pricing or anything. And I finally realized like we're losing money on this client. And I wasn't there to try to make, a boatload, but I had just at the beginning, like I said, when I started pricing it hourly at the beginning, I realized I wasn't factoring in that in 5 years I'd have, a larger team managing it and all the overhead and everything that we have. So what I had to do is I had to explain why. So I said, look, now, the time that's going to take, now that there's more people on social media, it's going to take us more time to effectively make sure that you stand out. Whereas 5 years ago, it wasn't as difficult, to make sure that you're being seen. I valued, told about the price that, the team members that are working on their account, it's basically, they're getting a raise every year, and putting that in there as well. And just explain the training that we're going to, the team members that have been working on the account for a while, and just the time that it was going to take and the investment that was going to take in order to get the job done effectively. That's what we had to do. And it wasn't a huge amount, but I did have to write and explain it, and they were fine with it. They know that they've increased their rates over, the 5 years that they've been doing business too. So.
That's good. I think that you want to try to even put in some regular review points. I think that can make it sometimes it's the end of the year. Sometimes there are contract pieces you have for the client, but you want to have some of those checkpoints along the way that where you can both evaluate. It's for you, it's you can help get their feedback so you can sharpen your services to them, but it's also a place for you to take a look at how is this going from a company perspective? Were there things that we didn't anticipate? And, to be able to evaluate that kind of conversation together. And I think it's a fact of business that over the course of time, because of the change, inflation, those types of things, that there's rates are going to have to go up, and even in our realm here, the digital realm, there's a value because of the amount of things that we have to keep track of. There's a value for all that we have to synthesize to deliver a service, and so that has to go into it. I mean, we're trying to offer a professional service so others don't have to dive in and try to know this as deeply as we do, and we can bring that some value to them.
That's good. I like that. The review points, use that as not a time to talk about it.
Yeah, I think also, without obviously being a lawyer, these kind of things you can mention in your contracts as well, that, the price can be subject to change if certain things come into agreement, because obviously what you're doing in January, the workload may increase by, March, April, May as well. Like Jessika mentioned, she got busy with her team, so she's obviously able to handle more now. So if the client's demands increase, then obviously that needs to be reflected as well in the price. So as long as they're aware that it is, it can be subject to change, it just makes the relationship a lot more fluid.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the transparency throughout, like we've talked on previous blabs, the transparency throughout will lead itself to know. I mean, you're showing exactly what you're doing. They're feeling the value from the services that you're providing. So it won't be that hard conversation. Now, it'd be a completely different conversation if you were having issues throughout that partnership. It may not be a good thing to bring up that, oh, by the way, we're raising your price. But when you've had that good foundation and that transparency throughout, and then it's a natural transition. And I'm going to post the formulas here again. So if people do have a product that they're selling, that there is an actual formula that you can use to doing a product. But as we mentioned, we are a fan of value-based pricing, but at least you know kind of what a good base is, what you have to have, I should say, for pricing your service before then you decide your value-based pricing, which means just taking in consideration the uniqueness of the skills that you're providing, the knowledge that you have that has got to that point to say that you can offer this, and it would take somebody a long time to learn and money to learn what you've learned to bring this to the forefront, not just the time that you're spending and actually doing it. So I'll post this formulas here one more time, so you don't have to, especially since it sounds like some of this chat is freezing over here. So any of you had to work with a company that's raised their pricing or lowered their pricing where it's been a good or a bad experience? Besides the cell phone companies.
Yeah. Cell phone companies are probably the most famous ones. But I think generally when we talk about pricing, the other famous ones are insurance companies, because premiums go up based on your situation. So they're probably the most famous at increasing their prices based on their external environments. If you want to look at an example of when to increase it or how, then they're one of the key people that sell the security of your house, home, or family, or vehicles, whatever it may be. But again, the premium goes up, and you'll find a lot of people pay that because they feel more secure knowing that their items or possessions are covered.
That's right. Now, what do you guys think? Putting pricing on the website, yay or nay?
I'd say probably nay, just because there's so many variables. I think that it's all about what someone needs, and so if they hear something, and again, the web, depending on where you sell it, I mean, there can be other factors that you need to figure in. So it's just kind of a slope that doesn't help, I think, just because there are so many differences and so many variables and so many things that you can't take into account when putting a number up there, and you're kind of, you're boxing yourself in at that point.
You're like, well, it says it starts at $1,200. What do you mean? My e-commerce 55-page website isn't $1,200. It says it right there.
Yeah, with all my unique shipping rules and freight charges and different things that I need implemented in this,
Well, I know Marcus Sheridan, and Ravi, I'll let you talk on this too, but Marcus Sheridan, we all in the marketing world have heard probably of him. He's a huge, advocate, I should say, for putting your price on your website because of some of the transparency. But as you mentioned, Mike, sometimes it can depend. So I think some of this maybe is based on industry or just putting it depends, but maybe here's a starting point. Here's where it could start. And then it's going to depend on what you're looking for or needing.
Yeah, I think it's also how you close the sale, because if you're selling something like we said that was intangible, like maybe offering a box package, then you want them to click to actually contact you so you can explain more about it. But if you're selling like an ebook, then having the price at $5 isn't going to deter anyone away. In fact, in the marketing world, it's called like a trigger or something that kind of stimulates their intention to purchase from you at a lower price point. So something like an ebook or something that costs between $5 and $10 is a good way to get them a habit of spending with your business before you maybe offer your more premium products. So I know, like you said, there's a lot of variables, but I think for those kind of smaller products, it's fine. For things like the larger price points, like we said, if it's not something you can physically touch or hold, then I don't think you're going to have harm by just saying contact us for more. But for example, like I said earlier, the Kickstarter campaigns, they're very transparent with how much it's going to cost. So backers who submit this amount will get the product in this amount of time. And if you invest $500 instead of $50, you're going to get all this. So people like to know what they pay for as well. But that's the other side of the coin, I guess.
Yeah,
right. Kickstarters it does work. It's a different model there with a Kickstarter for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys heard that there's like, if you put your pricing as an odd amount, an odd number, that, it does some kind of a trigger, social trigger. You know how all the prices used to be like $29.99, and then it was like, no, you should put a 5 in there instead of a 9. $29.95. Have you heard anything on that? Or?
Yeah, the famous one is 9.7. Everything's 9.7. So like 197, 297, 597. I don't know when's the last time that study's been revamped, but
exactly.
To be fair, psychologically, 197 sounds a lot less than $200. So just by pricing it a bit under, I think they get away. Car salesmen do it all the time, right? Everything's $5,999, $2,999. So they do it all the time with that. So I think going just under the threshold does help, but I don't think there's any research to say 9s or 7s work better. I think it's just like how long is a piece of string with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Now that we all know that that's the trick that they were using. Magician has showed his trick. So
yeah, I mean, you've heard us. So Jessika, Ravi, and I all saying that we lean away from being the cheapest. We lean away from trying to always be discounting. I'm curious what's out there in the audience realm there, and those listening. Where do you see yourself fitting in? You don't have to say specific prices or anything like that, but within your industry, do you feel like you're low, medium, high? And, why have you done that? And even for our university student out here, Kelsey, if you're still here, would love to know, are you thinking about working for someone, going into business yourself? And, I think I wish I would have had the opportunity to listen to a blab when I was in university. I mean, that thing didn't exist way back when I was there, but to learn this kind of stuff, to learn this kind of stuff ahead of time, So are you thinking of going out on your own, or are you thinking about working for someone, Kelsey?
You can jump in if you want, or you can message. So,
Gail's giving us some information there. 3 tiers.
Pricing: low level, mid level, and upper level. Yes.
Yeah, I think that 3-tier one's famous, like gold, silver, bronze. That kind of 3-tier feels like. And also, while on that point with the 3-tier, a lot of businesses have a golden or favorite package. So you'll see the columns laid out, and there's always one that starts saying most common, most purchased, the favorite deal package, which is usually somewhere in the middle of the two, which they kind of highlight as the best option. So that's kind of another marketing tactic that they use to say this is what everyone else is getting, so this is the best option for you, kind of thing, which also does help get sales. But I know a lot of people who have membership sites, and those kind of pricing options highlight a favored option, or like the golden option that everyone seems to purchase.
Yep, and Seth Godin puts that in his presentations. He talks about the 3-tier pricing and put the one that you really want them to go for in the middle. Yeah. And that's because that's usually the one that people will choose. And never go above like 3 options. Don't give them 6 options to choose from. It's just overwhelming and they won't choose any of them. So it's a good point. So, all right, we are, 45 minutes in. Time really fast. So if there's any more questions, definitely put them in the chat box. But also we'll just wrap it up then with our finishing thoughts and words of advice as we wrap it up. Go ahead, Ravi.
I would say don't be afraid to price higher than your competitors, and make sure you showcase why your product is different, but also the value. So don't be scared to go higher and showcase your personality as well. Have some fun with it and let them know why you're different and why they should buy from you.
Good tips. Mike?
Yep. No, I think, he's stealing some of my words there, but I think that don't be the lowest, and find a way to express your value and be willing to let go of those enticing deals that want you to go low and want you to do a little bit more and that type of thing, because often those are the worst for you in the long run. Mm-hmm. And I think that you need to understand, I think there's been a number of people who talked about that. Jed is gone now, but he mentioned that a number of times about just understanding that the value that you bring, there's the value you bring, there's the value of the marketplace, and finding that spot of offering value and not underselling yourself or your product or service.
It's good. And I mean, echoing both of what you said, knowing your value, knowing, what your uniqueness that you can bring that will also offer the client that return on their investment is huge. And I just say, know the real numbers though, too. Make sure that you do know not just your value, but know what your real bottom line is by doing, the math. I don't know if any of you guys are fans of The Profit, but I am a huge fan of that show or Shark Tank, but they always preach, knowing your numbers. And that's the key, because then it'll help you in all your business decisions, not just in your pricing this, but everything that you're budgeting out. Make sure that you just really do know your numbers inside and out, because you're going to be offering other things. You're going to be, making a lot of decisions in business besides this one, and knowing your pricing is huge.
Huge
for everything you're doing. I hate saying huge now after watching this. I can't even say it with a serious face. Huge people. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I'm going to be putting a link. I was a little bit of a slacker before we got started, but I'll be putting in a link in the comments here shortly. I know, it's, busy client stuff. But for our next week's blab that we will be having, and we'll be back here next Tuesday. And actually, let me put a couple links in here. Tuesday as well. And we'll have one here in a little bit as well. And I forgot the title of our blab. I'm really slacking today. What should I put it as, guys? Let's see here.
We've got it in our social blab there. Let me try that.
That's what I'm looking up. Oh my gosh, I can't believe my brain just kind of flopped out on that. Here, real quick. Okay, so.
How to automate your social media without seeming like a robot. Next week.
Thank you. That's a good one too.
Relationships and ROI.
Yeah.
Next week. It was just, we had to drum roll it in. So, yeah. Next week, guys, here at 2 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us this week. As always, great to see some familiar faces, and we hope to see you back next week for Relationships and ROI. Thanks so much.
Later.
Ooh.